Income inequality is a highly debated topic in today's society. And we are going to be discussing how income inequality hurts both businesses and society. So to begin with, we're going to discuss some of the ways that income inequality hurts businesses. In a study conducted by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, they actually found that the gap between the rich and the poor in most countries was actually at a 30-year high. It also found that 5 percentage points were lost from the GDP from 1990 to 2010 due to income inequality. The reason being is that economic growth happens when a lot of people spend money. So when most of the money is at the top 1% of the population, it makes it so the broad population is not spending money. The top 1%, they can't spend as much as the broad population as a whole. And because of this, it actually hurts business. So that is one way that income inequality is hurting business. Income inequality also tends to increase the rate of predatory market behaviors, which also is a hindrance on economic growth. Now we're going to discuss some of the ways that income inequality hurts society. So first off, income inequality leads to social friction, and I think that we saw a lot of this during the 2016 elections, because you could see that with the different candidates and their constituents and the population that made up their supporters. Inequality can also lead to an increase in crime. That may happen as a result of resentment or competition over resources. So one example in history was the Newark riots of 1967. During these riots, 26 individuals were killed and $10 million of damage was done. The reason or the causes of the underlying causes of the riots were because manufacturing jobs were disappearing, housing was deteriorating, and more of the well-off residents were moving to the suburbs. By the well-off residents moving, that they took their tax dollars with them, so that left less money for the police, it left less money for schools, and then those that were remaining actually had to pay higher taxes. The unfortunate thing, even though that was so long ago, is that 50 years later, we still see these types of things happening in our society today. Another thing that is hurt by income inequality in society is public health. Low income individuals, they may not have access to high quality and nutritious food. They may lack the transportation to go to a grocery store, which makes it difficult for them to actually buy fresh food, so they'd be relying on more of packaged food and maybe less nutritious items. And healthy food may be more expensive, so fast food may be the option that they would have. And this can all lead to bad eating, which can lead to obesity. Another way that it hurts society is through healthcare as well. So low-income individuals may not be able to afford healthcare. A study done by the American Journal of Public Health measured income inequality across the population before and after medical expenses were taken into account. They found that once medical expenses were subtracted from income inequality actually went up by 1.5 points. This same study also found that low-income people spent a lot of their income on healthcare, in fact, much more than rich people did, some even spending 1/3 of their income on healthcare. And they also found that after taking into account medical spending, it actually put millions of people into poverty, or those that were already into poverty, it put them into an even lower level. According to the World Bank, high levels of inequality negatively affect both the rich and the poor because inequality reduces social unity, and that can lead to more stress, more fear, and more insecurity for everyone. A third way that income inequality hurts society is through education. Children who grow up in poor families, they may not be prepared for starting kindergarten because their families may have lacked the resources that wealthy families have in terms of time and money. Wealthy families, they tend to spend more time and more money on their children's educational development than low-income families. And as a result of this, test scores can be greatly varied between the rich and the poor, rich and poor children when they start school. Wealthy children are given a head start in their educations that poor kids may not have. And this can actually be seen all the way through their lives as they go to college, and more affluent children are able to go to better colleges. So the question is there such a thing as too much wealth? According to a report by Oxfam, the world's 8 richest billionaires, which included Microsoft's Bill Gates, Amazon's Jeff Bezos, Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, they have the same wealth between all of them. So these 8 billionaires have the same wealth between them that the poorest half of the world's population has. So that's 3.6 billion people. So while the poor struggle to survive with a lot going hungry, going homeless, in contrast, these billionaires have more money than they could ever spend in several lifetimes. So when you take something like that into account, it definitely demonstrates just how big of a divide there is between the very rich and the very poor, and it demonstrates why income inequality is such a big issue in our society today.